Today we've got a banger for you. Most of the audience knows that I did a chunk of my Air Force career in the fighter community as a Strike Eagle backseater. Some of you know that I also really love military history and the culture that goes with it. This episode's going to check both of those boxes. Military aviation has a unique culture that goes back to the wartime roots 110 years ago. It's a topic that's really hard to cover and really hard to cover the right way. We gave it a shot, so fence in. Here we go.
When I was a youngin', my daddy said to me, "Oh son, I wanna know what it is you wanna be." I said I'll never wear a tie, but I like the color green. I think I'm gonna wanna fly the fucking F-16.
Gents, welcome to the show. It's a 1v3 interview. So from left to right for a voice recce for those who are not watching the video, go ahead and introduce yourselves. It's not a trap.
Your left or our left or who's left?
Who's left? I know it's not me, so
Press Snooze Kurek.
I'm Rob Trip Raymond.
I'm Erik, Easy Brine.
How do we want to start this? I mean,
How does every good podcast interview start?
Snooze, you're probably the easiest to voice recce for some pretty obvious reasons, which we'll get into in a second. But for the docket for today, just for everyone keeping along, we're going to start with talking about some songs. We're going to rewind some time and talk about that music, booze, and the squadron bar. We'll take a very short pit stop through Jermiah Weed, and we're going to roll all of that into something new called Winglore Spirits. It might not make sense, but trust me, it will by the end, I think. So let's start with the obvious. Snooze, Dos Gringos. Two of you are comprised the band Dos Gringos, and for those who have never heard of that, what would be the tweet description of what that is?
25 years ago when we started it, it was our take on the fighter pilot song culture that we were taught. You know, when we were going through initial training, when we were in our first F-16 training squadron, and we were introduced, and maybe it was a little bit in pilot training too, but we were introduced to the songbook. You know, all these songs that were collected starting from, you know, probably World War II up through Korea and Vietnam, but then it just kind of stopped. And we're like, well, is there anything from the last 20 years? And there really wasn't. So it was our attempt to like, well, let's see what we can do about that. Maybe update the songbook a little bit.
Well, I have to say, I was a former Juvet. I mean, I'm still a Juvet from Korea, and a lot of people would say, "How dare you?" There was lots of songs for decades.
Yeah, hundreds. There are actually hundreds of fighter pilot songs.
Way back in the day. But I mean, I think like what Snooze said, it is, there hadn't been anything really kind of new. There were a lot of songs that were maybe parodies of other songs, just with new words that were funny. And there were a lot of older songs that really, I think, defined that part of the culture. A lot of that coming from the Vietnam era. Folks like our friend Dick Jonas and others had written some songs, but there wasn't anything really that was in the generation that we were in. I realize now we're the old generation.
Sure.
We're going to talk about that too, I'm sure. But one of the things that Snooze did, even before I met him, is he wrote a couple of like real bangers. Like some of the most popular songs that Dos Gringos ever put out were written by Snooze as a lieutenant learning how to fly the F-16. And I think this is one of my favorite stories of how that all started.
Yeah, so I was a lieutenant at the 63rd Fighter Squadron at Luke, and every Friday we had to learn a new song. And one day I thought, well, yeah, I'll bring my guitar and I'll provide, you know, an acoustic accompaniment to one of the songs we had to, you know, kind of sing as lieutenants at the bar. And you know, that kind of went over well. Like, they were like, all right, these lieutenants are, you know, they're actually putting some effort into it and stuff like that. And I can't remember what song it was. It was like the, you know, fourth or fifth song, you know, where they want us to learn. And I don't know, I must have did something to where I kind of was like, man, these are really, like, just, the references here are really, really old. And I just got the biggest, like, oh, you know, like, all right, you know. And
Can you do better?
I think they called me Gimlet back then, and what there was, you know, like, oh, I'm sorry, you think you could do better? And I was just like, yeah. And they were just like, you gotta be shitting me. And I was in there, and so I went home, and that's when I wrote The Wingman. And I showed back up on Friday and taught it to a couple of my fellow lieutenants, and then we did it in front of the squadron at the squadron bar, and that was Dos Gringos was born.
I never asked this, but did any of the instructors have to pretend like it wasn't good? They're just like, whatever, man.
I don't know.
You still suck.
In my head,
Go clean the bar.
It's like, well, let's see if you can do it next week or something like that. Like that was a one-off.
That's right. Do it again.
I don't know. I can't say Dos Gringos was born, but that was where it kind of started. Jermiah Weed was the second one. And after that, it was like, hey guys, I really got to focus on
learning to fly.
Learning to fly, I just can't be like an every week type of thing, So I did kind of have to this is not going to be every week.
How did the two of you guys actually meet then?
I was about a year behind Snooze in the F-16, and he was already stationed at Cannon Air Force Base. For those who, for those who don't know it, I'm pretty sure it's still the worst one. And so I got assigned for my first F-16 combat assignment out at Clovis, New Mexico, and Snooze was actually my sponsor. If you're not familiar, it's an informal / formal type of process. When you go to a new squadron, they assign you with someone who's already there to help you find a place to live, make sure you know the lay of the land, understand the squadron, really just help you through that process, especially going to some crappy place like Cannon. And Snooze was my sponsor, and I got none of that. Basically,
I was semi-deployed.
yeah, he was gone. So semi-deployed. It was O&E. So I remember calling him, and I'm like, hey, I'm the new guy, man. I'm super excited for Clovis. Tell me all about it. And he's like, yeah, I'm in a trailer right now. You'll be fine. I'll just see you when you get back, or when I get back. So then we finally met in person. I think it was at a squadron party or something. And we had talked about guitar, and I was like, oh, I play guitar and do music. And he's like, well, so do I. And little did I know he had written some of these songs. I actually hadn't heard them because they hadn't really propagated outside of the 63rd Fighter Squadron. But once I got to the squadron, we started playing these songs and writing new songs and just playing at squadron parties. And then that just sort of scaled up from there until we deployed together for OIF, shock and awe, that time frame. And we wrote songs there just to kill the time. We just, you can't drink there. So you have to do other things to occupy your brain. Maybe that's a lesson that I don't want you to take from this. Just keep drinking, people. But honestly, it was talk about inspiration for new songs. We had already done things like World War III, a bunch of other songs together. Snooze obviously already had his repertoire of songs, and we played those together. And it just kind of kept growing from there, and we never thought it would be anything other than us with a couple of guitars doing stupid jokes.
Yeah, living in a trailer for 6 months. And there was a time where we were banging out one or two a week. Just writing whatever, happened to be a topic of the day or something. Yeah. Not all of them made the cut.
Yeah, there's a lot on the floor there. If you've ever seen the first album, Live at the Sand Trap, yes, it was not live at all, but the Sand Trap was. I don't know if it's still standing at Al Jabra Air Base. Even a few years ago, someone sent me pictures of that double wide trailer that had become the kind of ad hoc officers club. Dry, of course. So that's where we used to play a lot of our little shows for the squadron.
Is that the picture on the album cover
right.
where it has "Welcome to the Porch"?
Yep, that's it. And we were there with the 524th Fighter Squadron, the Hounds of Heaven, but there were other squadrons there. So it became kind of a place where the A-10s, even there was the British Harriers were there. Eventually all the Marines in the Marine Corps showed up and ate all the food. So they showed up there too. Yeah, Carlos.
Took all my money at the poker table.
Well, yeah. That's on you.
Is that how you met Carlos?
Carlos is off screen, but he's our CEO, one of the founders of Winglore Spirits, a retired Marine Hornet pilot. And that's an interesting story how we all connected too. But it wasn't there as far as I know. I think at that point he was probably an enlisted infantry rifleman or something. Anyway, so then we get back. This was a really long answer to your very clear question.
Keep going.
Yeah.
You said, can you succinctly summarize what is Dos Gringos? And it's like 20 minutes later, and we're bullshitting. So then we got back from that long, it got extended at deployment, and we're back at Canon, and we're like, maybe we should record some of these things. We didn't know anything about recording, really. I'd done a little, and I know Snooze has done a little, but there's nothing in Clovis, New Mexico. There's not like a studio. So we went to Lubbock and found this dude with a computer in a warehouse who had some microphones, and we recorded that whole album in like 4 days. Most of it is like one take with guitars because we didn't have any money, and we would just record it, play it, figured out how to put it on CDs, and we're like, oh, we'll just like give them to all our friends. And then that word spread, so we're like, I guess we could sell them for $5 or whatever and mail them. And then it just became like this viral thing before there was really a viral internet type of thing with music yet. And then all the assholes out there started burning the CDs, stealing it.
I mean, you guys have like, I don't know, half, if you add them all up, 500,000, 750,000 views on YouTube
Yeah.
from all your, if you add them all your songs together, the plays.
And people were like making videos of the songs. I don't know who made those. I think they did a great job. Good job, guys.
Fan fiction. Right?
Yeah.
so in total, you guys released 4 albums from about 2003 to 2012. It's like 3.5 because one of them is just a recorded live album, right?
Right.
And I know that there's life moves on. You guys kind of moved on. It sounds like if we just lock you in a double wide trailer for 6 months with no booze, we might get another Dos Gringos album.
With no booze, who knows what we could do? Man. Keep writing.
Hey, Trip, that's what you said,
I know.
not me.
Can we edit that out of this thing? I'll just tell you, however, some of the really fun songs that we wrote after that were entirely supported by alcohol. And we had 3 other albums after that. Pako, come on.
Yeah, totally redeem yourself.
That's right. So we got kind of successively more professional, I guess, into the recording. We're still not to the AI level of recording quality, but we did. I think we did the best we could, and had like some studio musicians come in and help when needed, and some buddies playing the various instruments. And then about 2012, we did our last one, which was probably the most fun because we did a lot of that recording like in my basement. And we went to a studio. It was really started to understand the tools of the trade a little bit more, and then mixed it all together and had a blast with that one. And then Christmas was canceled and all the fun ended in about 2012. So we had to pivot a little bit, which is actually an interesting story too, that we could talk about with Easy.
Yeah, I'm gonna get to. I know Easy. You're the third wheel in this part of the conversation, but you have a very important story to play, and I'll get to that in just a second. I heard you guys were banging out songs in the fighter bar in the Pentagon last night. I heard it was good. I heard it was legit. I heard someone almost went to jail.
That is true. That is trone. All true. I don't know about jail. Okay. I mean, I'm not sure what rules exist at this point, but none were blatantly broken, and all we really did was show up to celebrate the opening of the government, I guess. Now, this had
Or did they show up to celebrate you?
I believe that.
I think it was the other way.
Actually, I believe that's what happened. They opened it just for us.
Let's go with that.
So thank you, Congress, for that. Yeah, this was something that. So when I was at the Pentagon, I got involved, onto the mailing list for the fighter bar, and I never left. And I've been. That was 15 years ago, probably. So.
I'm still on the distro list too, and it's been 10 years. Yeah.
It's great.
They don't ever take people off the list. Don't take me off the list.
No, I love it. It's good history. They give you like the funny memes and all that stuff. It brightens my day. And then I emailed the mayor at the time. I won't to protect the innocent. I'll just protect the name. But I said, hey, we're we're doing this whiskey thing. You know, like, I don't know. I used to be there. I occasionally go down there. I was in the Pentagon. So we started a dialogue, and then another buddy, Spud, had connected with him, and we talked about maybe we could play a little show there and do a little whiskey tasting, and that's what we did. So it was super fun, very, very crowded, and uncomfortably hot, maybe. But it was
Yeah, it's not a very big area.
Not
So.
the hottest show we played.
definitely not the hottest.
I think that might have been Germany. I think I sweat 10 pounds
Yeah,
body weight off. in
I remember
that
that
show.
at the Wilmar.
Snooze, Bam said he's sorry that he cornered you. He was the attack midget fighter pilot. But he did tell me to ask you a story about how you were throwing at one point. Way back when you threw some 20 millimeter shot shells in the air.
So I just got into Fort Worth. I joined the SPADs there, and they were having some get together over at Alliance. Essentially, it was Ross Pro Jr.'s private hangar. And I think this was before Draken became a thing, but there was a big rumor that they were going to start, commercial red air with like F5s and all this other stuff. So I was over there to kiss the little ass and, kind of, whatever. But there was a pilot training class, I think, over there as well. And so we're doing shots or something like that. And I don't know. Supposedly there was like a G5 right behind me. I took a shot from 20mm shell and just chucked it, and the whole place went silent. And then it's one of those in slow motion where they're all just watching zoom, 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 zoom. And it landed about, what I'm told, because I checked it over my back and I just didn't even bother to look. It landed about 2 feet from his, G5, I think. So there was, people were just, some pants were not my best moment. So, but
Not your worst.
You guys. All right, easy. Although you're not part of this, Gringos, you do have an important part of the journey in the music. Tell me about Operation Encore.
When these guys got canceled almost 15 years ago, 14 years ago, we were in DC at the same time. Trip and I, we go back 30 years now from college days. I had been working a lot.
You guys were in college together?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah, Boston University, a long time ago. I was working in DC as well. I was working on the Hill. I had done some work in the veteran space and helped start the veterans program at Georgetown, where I was going back to school at night. And I kind of wrapped that up and was ready to move on and hand that over to other people. Trip here was career threatened and not really going to do much in those Gringo space for a while, but knew we still wanted to do something in music. So we had started talking about how could we leverage kind of this powerful medium of music to do something to help the veteran cause. I knew I did not want to work in the veteran space as my full-time job, but I felt pretty passionate about it. And we were doing things related to the Hill, and I kind of felt like a lot of people were missing the point. Even people that were trying to do good things to help and provide support in the veteran space. So we started thinking, what if there's something around music we could do to help veterans? And we started talking, and like maybe we could teach people how to play music. And like, somebody's doing that already. And then we thought maybe we could like put on big concerts or shows and raise money for people that were doing things for veterans. And then we realized, well, we don't really know anybody. And eventually somebody else did that. So maybe that's not a good idea. But then we thought, like, these guys are pretty talented. Maybe there are other people like them. So we started asking around, and I knew a guy, and they knew a couple of guys, and we started putting together a bit of a group of people that might be able to put some song-worthy, singles on an album. And we started spreading the word a little bit more and thought maybe we'll make this a particular effort. The organization was called Operation Encore, a veteran music project, because it was intended to be a very singular effort and project. And eventually we raised about $20,000 on Kickstarter and decided we were going to create an album. And we found a bunch of talented veteran or military artists.
Like 11 or 12, I can't remember how many on the first album.
It depends, I think, on how you count and,
Sure,
and
right.
who was on it. But folks playing, a bunch of the guys from Los Gringos playing backing instruments, and we recorded the entire album in 3 days out in Phoenix. And it was an awesome effort. We brought together people we had never met before from all sorts of services, some still active duty, some reserve, some that had left the military already. And it was kind of an incredible event. The people that recorded the music out at STEM Studios were like, you guys are amazingly efficient. We're rolling all these people in time slots, all these people that had never met, are all living in one house together for the better part of a week. And we're just knocking them out through the studio. And it was an incredible event. We brought all those people back after the album was complete and put on a show that we were just reminded of this week. I thought about that for a while. And had a really cool experience. And we thought that was it because it was a project.
So we founded Operation Encore, the three of us, 2014, 2013, I think.
2014.
And it's going strong. We got a lot more artists now, but what we found is when we would be deployed or somewhere and we pick up the guitars and start playing music, particularly original music, a lot of folks come out of the woodwork from the military and they're like, oh, I also write songs or play or do this or that. And that kind of all came together and culminated in this first part, that first album, where we realized all these folks are out there, they're talented. They just have never really had an opportunity to get in a studio and actually collaborate on music, a lot of them. And that's really what this turned into. Was we transitioned to a nonprofit. We've done several albums, several big shows, songwriter workshops. We have, 40 plus artists now, and they're singer-songwriters. So folks who write their own music. It's not all about military stuff. In fact, most of it is not. It's just them telling their own story, playing music in front of people, and that has been super rewarding and really fun, and a really good way to pivot away from what was getting us in trouble at that time and do still something positive with music, which is, we're all real passionate about. That's been super fun.
And I think part of the important piece of this, because while it still impacts a relatively small number of people, the 40-something in the organization, but even then when it was only 11, 12 artists, it kind of had two very specific missions. One of those was to help and create an opportunity for those artists that probably missed the opportunity to play in smoky bars, because that was a thing, even maybe back then, or live in a van and go up the West Coast playing shows because they were on a boat in the middle of the ocean or were deployed somewhere. So we're creating that opportunity that they probably missed because they were serving their country, and we're trying to add something to it, some resources maybe that they didn't necessarily have to make that dream happen. But there was a wider mission too, and part of that was trying to help close that civil military divide. We're still, all as people that serve our country, a really small percentage of the population, and really smaller now than it's been in our nation's history for the last 100 years. So we constantly found people, even in the DC area, that didn't necessarily know a veteran or somebody that had served. Where a couple generations ago, there wasn't anybody that didn't have somebody in their family that had served. So coming back from the war and stuff, people were awkward around veterans and didn't even really know what to say. So we tried to create this opportunity to kind of bridge that divide and let people know that veterans are just a microcosm of the population. Sometimes they're your neighbor, sometimes they're your school teacher, sometimes they're the banker, sometimes they're rock stars like these guys. But what it comes down to is it's just a small part of everybody's life. It's defining, and there are some pretty intense experiences that oftentimes military members experience, but they're just like everybody else. And what you find in music is great ways to relate and bring people together. And that's what we tried to use this for. So it didn't have to be about patriotism. It didn't have to be, we didn't want songs about the flag. We wanted songs about people's personal experience so they could relate to other people.
Yeah, that's great. I want to go back. You talked about singer-songwriters. Does that include the AI singer-songwriters?
To date, none of the AI artists have submitted to be part of Operation Encore.
That's true.
I don't want to
pop in.
So great hip hop. I don't want to discriminate against robots because they will be in charge someday. So I have, for one, welcome this. No.
For those who don't track this this kind of subculture of fighter pilot heritage and fighter pilot songs, there's several AI type artists that are generating music about flying and fighting and the scenes and stuff like that. And some of it's like, yeah, that's really good. Some of it's like, it's got no soul. It's got no soul. Trip.
That's true. I think a lot of it is quite impressive. Like, it's very funny and it's well produced. And it's also, I know there is a human in the loop, on the loop. Pako, you would know that better than me. I don't.
Trip, you and I were talking a month ago. Tell me about Tailhook. You guys put on a show at Tailhook, and we had one of these AI artists.
Well, I didn't realize, I did not make the connection to the AI piece. Someone had forwarded me Merge Merchant, some of his songs, and it's really cool. It's like kind of dance music. It's funny. It talks about flying, but I didn't know who that was. It's not like their face is like on a website or anything. Well, one of the guys that plays bass with the band, Spec, found him on social media. Spec was also in Operation Encore, or a number of the guys who played with us for a long time. Viper guy as well. Anyways, he connected with Merge Merchant somehow on social media. I got connected like the day of Tailhook when we're about to play, and it turned out he was going to be there. Again, I don't want to he might have this persona that he's trying to protect. I don't want to out him in front of everyone, but I did get to meet him at Tailhook, and I said, do you want to open for us? We're doing a Dos Gringos show later. And he's like, yeah, that'd be awesome. And I'm like, do you need a microphone or turntables? I'm like, I don't know what the hell you do. And he's like, no, is there something I could plug my laptop into? I'm like, I guess, sure. And I'm like, you don't need a microphone? He's like, nope. So he, no kidding, showed up with the laptop, boop, hit play, and the place went crazy. People were dancing and they knew all the words. He's out there in a mosh pit leading them. It was very impressive, I must say. And then I started to see, or we all started to see these other bands that were doing full band music, but it was clear that there wasn't one singer. It's I want a country song. Here's a country singer. I want a rock song. Here's a rock. I want a female singer. Not to take away from it's really well produced, but it became clear okay, these aren't actual human beings playing the stuff. Maybe there's people helping curate it or whatever, and hopefully in some way they trained on Dos Gringos music to get there, so we can feel a little bit like we're part of the future.
That's a good way to transition. We talked about the music, obviously, and how that's connected to the culture of the flying community and the fighter pilot community in particular. But we also talked about the Pentagon Bar. There's a very important reason why there's a bar in the basement of the Pentagon called the Fighter Bar. And for those who don't know, there's basically a squadron bar in every single flying squadron in the U.S. military. And then when they deploy, they just make one wherever they're at, right? Whether it has booze or not, they'll figure it out. And there's a really important history behind it. And this is going to be the long wind up all the way back to the booze, which is where we're gonna end the episode. So if you go way back, you guys probably know the history based on the name of Winglore Spirits. There's obviously a huge history and drinking and songs and the culture of aviation and military aviation they're all intrinsically linked. You can't just separate those things out. They're all part of the history and the culture. I know there was a time you guys kind of alluded to it. They were trying to, delete that part, delete that part, keep this part. And there's some goodness in that too. So if you go back to World War I is when it all started. And if you guys want to jump in and tell a story about World War I, or if you want, I could just give the voiceover and then we can go from there.
Why don't you take World War I? You got it. How did that conflict start? I mean, Snooze could probably talk for a couple hours if you want.
No, I'm gonna keep it short and sweet. So World War I, pilots usually came from an upper class society. They had an officers' mess that was kind of modeled after the Army's mess, but this is the upper echelons of society, if you will. And the problem is that aviation was really tough at the time. It was really dangerous. Oh, by the way, no one actually had parachutes back then in World War I. And so they're flying these contraptions. They're trying to figure it out as they go. And so there was a lot of losses. The average pilot in World War I lived for 6 weeks. And at the height, or I guess the low The average British pilot in 1917 lived for 11 days. So I tell you that story because back then those planes didn't have radios or anything like that. All they had was they'd take off. They had hand signals, and certain planes were painted with different tail flashes to figure out who was who. But at the end of the day, you had a roll call to bring everyone together, and the squadron commander would take roll of the people and the planes that made it back and didn't make it back. And based on the turnover and just the attrition of pilots during the war, roll call became this very symbolic thing because 99% of the time someone would not make it back to the roll call. And so that became this very sobering moment, probably a bad choice of words, sobering moment, which then turned into a celebration of life after the roll call. And soon those two things kind of merged together, and it became a way to cope, to celebrate, and to kind of move on and compartment for the next day. And so the squadron bar and different types of drinks became part of the culture to get the fighter pilots through World War I. And that's how all of those things came together.
It has morphed. Certainly, our introduction to the roll call. Sometimes they are somber type moments because you will do one after someone dies, often. But has become much more of like a upbeat, fun kind of joking thing. Which those things are not necessarily mutually exclusive, right? Even the times when we've had roll calls to celebrate a fallen comrade or something like that, it always turns into telling funny stories, even about the person who died. And that's what we would all hope for, right? Like, you don't want people to be sad. You want them to celebrate. You want them to make, remember that time that he did this or whatever. And that is best done in a community of people that you love, you trust, and often it's best done, sharing a toast, telling those stories, telling funny stories, making fun of each other, and then enjoying, a beverage together in that spirit. So I think it all really does tie together. And even though it's evolved over the past 100 years, and the conflicts are much different than they used to be, the attrition is much different, the spirit is still the same. And that's really what kind of led us when we formed up and met Carlos and Stroke to build this spirits company. That's really what we were trying to get after, is kind of bringing that all together, all those things that we love, into a product that helps celebrate it.
It's a special type of camaraderie that brings everyone together. That shared experience that everyone's kind of going through. You call it type 2 fun
Right.
sometimes,
Sure.
Right? Lots of type 2 fun. But you're making memories and you're trauma bonding, if you will.
That's right, trauma bonding.
And it's a special part of the culture. So if you fast forward to like World War II, the same thing. Trip, you went through weapons school. When you were out
Back
there,
in
was
World
the
War
2-5
II?
club there?
Trip, you were there.
How much hair have I lost?
Sorry.
Yeah.
That was a pretty big leap of logic there.
We were just at this thing. It's funny aside. Like 2 weeks ago, we did this custom bottling and Dos Gringos show for the Baltimore Air National Guard unit, the A-10s that are unfortunately deactivated. We actually did this like custom A-10 bottle for them at 104 proof because of the 104th Fighter Squadron. Anyways, super fun, but most of the jokes before we started playing were picking on the two oldest guys and talking about how they were flying in World War I and World War II. Because they went through the history of the squadron. We started in 1918. Yeah. Hey, you were there, remember? And now I feel like we're getting to that stage in our lives where you inadvertently did the same thing, Pako, and it didn't seem that weird. That's the problem.
No, I was going to mention if it's not there anymore, but there was probably a good 30-year streak. There was a club outside of the front gate at Nellis in the not so good part of town. You could walk across the street, called the 2-5 Club. You guys remember the 2-5 Club?
Yes, I do. Many times. It's no longer there.
Oh yeah. No longer there. But that has a streak back to World War II. It's called the 2-5 Club for the 25 bomber missions from the 8th Air Force, right? It's all this like camaraderie and celebration of life, and it's all part of the culture and the community. Right. We'll take a really quick pit stop into the connection. Maybe this will be a terrible transition. Who knows? So there is a certain type of bottle of a booze that is very, very closely associated with the fighter pilot community, and that's Jermiah Weed.
Yeah.
And I'm not making this up. I actually have a bottle of it still.
Oh, unopened in the round glass. That's like the old school.
I took it out of my freezer because that's really the only way you can drink it. But I took it out of my freezer, and it's probably been there it's probably 5-6 years old. So
you want to hear something funny? So one of the members of our team in Winglore, her name is Amanda. We call her Ninja, and she's a master blender, which is sort of, think of a sommelier of whiskey. And yesterday at the fighter bar was her introduction to Jermiah Weed, and she approached it like she would a fine spirit, and smelled it the right way. We weren't allowed to bring cameras in, so we couldn't, but it was like it's hints of sugar and crap, or I don't know what it was. And she tried it.
Say medicinal.
She said, it's medicinal.
Medicinal. That's a fancy way of saying what it tastes like. It does not taste good. It does not taste good, which is part of the whole joke.
I'm not sure what she meant by that still, but.
And I think that the great thing about Jermiah Weed is that it has it as a really cool story, but also it's not intended to be good. No offense to anyone who was, going to sue me.
People that made it thought maybe they would make it.
Perhaps, right. But I mean, it's become part of this culture where it's deliberately bad, right? Like you do it as a penalty. You should take a shot as a penalty for doing something, making a mistake, or as a celebration. If everyone's doing it, it's that maybe shared trauma that you talked about. Let's all just get through this together. But I mean, it's obviously been a part of the fighter culture for a long time, and it has spread to other services too.
Other countries.
Other countries,
Even, yeah.
for some reason. Yeah.
I blame Red Flag. That's where it all started. It was the Viper community at Red Flag. And there's an F4 connection to that where an F4 crashed, and those F4 guys went to the Viper when it was in test.
They were like the initial cadre Viper guys, Nord and do that. Yeah.
Yeah, they drove out to where the crash site was, got lost, found a bar, played drinking games with the bartender, and then they ran out of booze, and they were going to do afterburners where you like light it on fire.
Yeah.
And so they needed something that was like really high proof, and the bartender was like, well, I got this thing here. I have no idea what it is. That was the bottle they pulled out, was Jermiah Weed.
Yep.
And then they brought that back to the O Club, and that Red Flag happened to be in town. And so by the end of like Red Flag, everyone was drinking at the Nellis O Club. And the international Red Flags. Now you have all of these other fighter squadrons from around the world coming in, and so that's kind of how it just like exploded. Yeah, but it does not taste good. Not taste good.
It does not, and it's discontinued. Probably not for any reason other than it's really tough to drink.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, once you've got the frozen bottle in your freezer, that's it. You don't need any more. So there's a limited market, I think, because it's not like you're going into the freezer for your after work treat every day and like, I need another bottle. That's there for an emergency roof stomp, and that's it. And people don't really do that anymore. So,
yeah. So it's gone. There's some efforts to try to like buy the brand and revive it, which is, if you're gonna do something, you should probably do something that like doesn't suck as far as like the taste and how it is. So
That's a good idea.
What a good segue.
Yeah.
what a good segue. Tell me about something that tastes much better than Jermiah Weed. Tell me about how you guys ended up in the whiskey business.
Well, there you go. There's the bottle. It's interesting because that what you talked about, resurrecting Jermiah Weed, that's something that Erik and I had gone down that path, as have many others. And it's not that it's a dead-end path. There is a path to do it. But when we learned and had some calls and figured out what would actually be required if we wanted to kind of make it into a business, it stopped making a lot of sense. And right about that time, Carlos had emailed me or texted me or something. I didn't know Carlos Howard, our CEO, retired Hornet driver, Marine. We'll probably bring him on here in a second, but he contacted me. It was right about when I was retiring and I was like in a new job. And I'm like, I don't have time to do much else. I'm sorry, but let's connect again in a year or so. At some point later, we connected again, or I reached back out to Carlos and I said, what are you up to? What are you doing? And he said, well, me and my buddy Stroke, we are starting to develop this aviation-inspired whiskey brand. I'm like Jermiah Weed? And he's like, well, kind of, but actually, my uncle is in the tequila business. I understand the industry. I'm connected with this really good distillery in Virginia called Virginia Distillery, and I live near there. And I kind of started working through some of the branding, and I think we're onto something, but we'd love to maybe talk. So we started talking. Me, Easy, eventually brought Snooze in, and we all just sort of figured out, how do we turn this thing into a real company? And we formed a company, and it takes a long time to do that. Legally, to sell alcohol is not super easy to do. There's a lot of steps involved, and not the least significant is getting really good whiskey into a bottle. Like, you have to find the best premium spirits, and that's what we've done. So that's really what brought it together, and we built this brand called Winglore Spirits, and we'll talk through a lot more, but the intent is not to be just a closed group of people who might have liked Jermiah Weed but now want to drink something that's better. The intent is to introduce the world to this really cool culture, at least parts of it, right, that we talked about earlier. Camaraderie, enjoying really fine spirits with people that you like to hang out with, making fun of folks. We call it toast, roast, and lore. Those are kind of the three pillars. Roasting your friends, making fun of things, not taking yourself too seriously. But the stuff in the bottle and the bottle design we took very seriously, and it's really good.
It's kind of not unsimilar to the Operation Encore approach, right?
Sure.
Where it has a very tactical focus. Like, we're making a pretty amazing whiskey right here. But it has a bigger mission, too, to bring in the community and then introduce all the cool things about the aviation community to everybody else that maybe thinks it's cool but doesn't really know why it's really cool.
Right.
You showed the A10 bottle before. You showed that one. There's two. You offer like two main types of booze right now, though, right?
Yeah, this is Bogey Dope, the bourbon. We also offer an American single malt called Nickel on the Grass.
Nice names. Those are great names.
Well, one thing you learn if anyone's trying to go down this path, is pretty much all the names are taken. So not that these aren't perfect names. They actually work really well for us. But if you were like, I'm going to make Fighter Pilot whiskey, or I'm going to make Spine Ripper bourbon, or whatever, like, someone already thought of it, and they trademarked it, and they're not using it. And
you
don't get it.
For those who might who are trying to learn more about the culture but don't know, can you explain what Bogey Dope is, and then explain what Nickel on the Grass signifies?
Sure. Do you want to take the Bogey Dope one?
All right.
Not a new song idea, but
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great one. I think it's
Bogey Dope is just a call for the picture around you. So, you're basically asking either AWACS or the tactical controller, where are the bad guys at? And so Bogey Dope is a very specific, like, they're most likely close, and I need a quick call out. They're at your 5 miles, that kind of thing, and what altitude, how many, stuff like that. It's not I don't want the whole picture, but I need very specific, who's threatening me right now, where are they? They're right there,
So maybe you're having a rough day. You don't really know what's going on. You're a little confused. This is how you get high situational awareness. Bogey Dope.
It's a good name for a straight bourbon whiskey. Right?
That's right.
It's straight to the point.
That's
Give me
right.
what I need to know. Yeah.
Exactly.
All right. Tell me about Nickel on the Grass.
So Nickel on the Grass is another part of our culture that I think it came from I learned this from Carlos, actually. It came from a Salvation Army. Oh, you wrote. Okay, so it's probably best if you kind of go through the history of it.
We'll screw it up.
Because otherwise, and by the way, I've screwed up the Jermiah Weed story because it was how I learned it in another interview. And one of my friends politely said, "You are so full of shit. Don't screw this up again." And he sent me like the letter from the general who was like, "This is the actual story," because no one gets it. And I was like, "Yeah, my bad." So I'm actually glad that you went through the whole story, Pako, because then if you made a mistake, it's on you.
It's on me. Yeah.
So go on, Nickel on the Grass.
Well, we'll skip the history, but how about just what it signifies
Yeah.
for the culture? That's probably the most important part of the takeaway.
When one of your colleagues crashes, dies in an aircraft generally, although it's expanded to really any memorial type of a thing, the tradition is to hand out nickels to everybody in the unit, and then in their honor, you do a toast and you throw a nickel on the grass to commemorate that person and to celebrate their life. So it has got somewhat of a somber note to it. But again, if like we talked about with roll calls, it doesn't take very long before the sad turns into just funny and shenanigans. So there is definitely a part to it. And Nickel on the Grass is just our way to tie into that part of the culture. It's a really good whiskey that you can drink straight, and it's not a shooting type of a thing, but I suppose you could if you need to. And we just wanted to tie into that part of the culture of when you have a really fine spirit and you're going to drink it, it should mean something. It should be with people, and you should be thinking about something other than just I'm trying to get hammered, right?
But you drink it however you want.
You can do whatever you want.
As long as you drink it, right?
Won't mix it with Coke, though.
Yeah,
As long as you consume it and buy more. Yeah. So the booze is important. Obviously, it's an important part of this. But when you go to your website, one of the things I notice is it's not like, here's my bottle, here's the price, buy it. It leads with the culture and what Winglore Spirits is founded upon, all the stuff we've been talking about.
Right.
There's a squadron page button, which has some good ones. They happen to be the 3 original Eagle squadrons of World War II that are all Strike Eagle units now.
Yep.
I would imagine you want people to submit things to fill that out with, like, I don't know, the Viper community. You guys are Viper guys. Why are there no Viper squadrons on the webpage?
We're getting there, We're getting there. That is all part of the plan.
Okay.
But but I think there's a lot of ways that we intend to get out to each of the units. And again, it has to be done kind of deliberately, and we can't do everything everywhere all at once. But I think what's super important about joining the squadron and being part of the group is folks can just not only contribute content like that, which we would love to pull in and have that be almost a repository for the history, but also they can own part of the whiskey company, which is kind of cool.
Tell me about that.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
I'll say it sounds like a pitch, but really it is. It's not like we need the money as much as we want people to have buy-in. We want people to be able to point to their shelf and be like, that's my whiskey company.
Feel ownership.
Yeah, I think
Because they actually have it.
actually would have it. And I think it's pretty badass and not a thing that's offered often, especially if it's something that's part of our community, our culture, that we can open up to other people that are outside of the community of just flying, but love it or are inspired by it. And can be
At the
part
very
of it.
beginning, you don't want customers, you want advocates.
Yeah. Ambassadors.
Yeah.
So that's super important to us. And I think what you tied in the beginning, individual squadrons bringing their history and letting us be a platform to share some of that, that's a big part of it. But we want to take it even further than that and really build something around the brand that's more than just selling booze. It's actually bringing a community together around a cool product that people get behind.
So we actually started raising money in the spring for this because we are a startup. We've got to raise money to make this thing happen and grow at the pace that we want to grow. And we actually raised money much faster than we thought we would have. It only took us about 3 weeks to raise $1 million through larger accredited investors. And most normal startups would have just kept going and done that because it was actually fairly easy for us to raise capital. But we paused it at that point because a very particular part of our strategy in growing this brand and community was to create that opportunity for everybody that we know to be a part of it. All those people that we've flown with, whether they're JOs or CGOs or whatever it may be that are out in the squadron that don't fit that accredited investor category, we wanted to use a platform that would allow us to have people go out for as little as $101 and be a small part of what the success is that we'll know as Winglore Spirits.
They can brag to their friends.
That's right.
Go to the bar, tell
to
the
the
ladies,
bar.
that's my whiskey company.
That's right.
Yeah, because people aren't going to go, you know what? I'm a part owner at Jermiah Weed. That's not going to happen, right?
Well, I'm sure a lot of people would want to do that. For maybe different reasons.
I mean,
Different reasons.
My dad's a perfect example. I mean, his golf buddies have got to be like, Joe, shut up. He won't. I mean, he has been pushing this. I mean, like, he's so happy that you guys made him a brand ambassador. Like,
Does he have the coin yet?
Yeah, I
think he does.
He loves being a part of it. Just owning a small bit makes him feel like,
That's awesome.
And that's what we want. We want people bought in and excited about it, not only because they go out and buy it themselves and want it on their shelves or buy it for people at the retirement they go to or the promotion, but they want them to be telling other people, I own a whiskey company. You should check this out. And it's not just about the whiskey. It's about all that other content, the jokes, the toasts, the stories, the music. These are all things that are important to us. And it's all those other things that make being a pilot amazing and being a part of this community so much fun.
I love it. All right, we're getting short on time. I'm putting both of these on my Christmas list. How can someone get one of these bottles?
Easiest way is to go to winglorespirits.com. So we can ship directly to your house in 34 states currently. We're still working on getting out to retail stores, and we'll be growing in the retail space this year and hopefully 5 states by the end of the year, and then moving on to double that next year. And then by next year, we hope to be out in your beefies, Class 6s, Marine Corps exchanges, and NEX, all of that. But right now, the easiest way is to go to winglorespirits.com. Click on supply, and you can order any of our current offerings.
Okay.
In Colorado, we're pretty close to being in a couple retail locations that we'll share on socials once that's set up. I don't want to get ahead of that. I will say that we have a pretty clear path to get to the Nellis Club. And that, to me, that's sort of like ground zero. If we can get there, then that's great. And we're hoping to get there by a patch night. There is a process for all things in this business that is ridiculous.
Like patch night, like in 30 days?
Yes, sir.
Wow. This will come out probably this is probably going to come out around Thanksgiving. So that's a good little clue to put in there. Go ask for it.
Well, that's right. So just like the government opening, now you can thank us for your happy Thanksgiving.
That's why we do it.
That's why we do it. For you.
So potentially at the Nellis Club for Ground Zero would be a good place by patch night in December of 2025. Go to the website, 34 states and counting. What about being part of that community that you talked about? How can people learn more about that?
So you can get there from our website as well. If you look at Join the Squadron, there's a link to click. Or you could go directly to Net Capital, who's our partner that is providing this crowdfunding opportunity. Either way, you'll go to the website. It's very easy to become an owner or an investor. You can do it right on their website. Even with a credit card, it takes less than 5 minutes, and you can invest in part of greatness here and be a Winglore honor.
Okay, so if we kind of go all the way back to the beginning, I sense there's an opportunity here. When is there going to be a Dos Gringos concert at the distillery?
That's actually not something we had considered. It's about
Really?
Well, it's about a 2.5 hour drive outside of DC. It's in a beautiful place, Virginia Distillery Company. If you're ever in the neighborhood, reach out to us. We can work with Ninja and the team, and you can see what it is all about. It's really cool. It's built in in big copper stills and huge barrel warehouse. It's amazing. Whether we could do a concert there and how many people would take the journey to drive down there, I think anything's possible.
Maybe we'll workshop that. I think there's an opportunity there, whether or not at the distillery or not. Like, you guys have a massive cult-like following. I think what you guys are doing with Operation Encore is kind of expanding that to other people. Maybe there's some kind of concert where you have a bunch of AI artists, and then the anchor band at the end of the night is Dos Gringos, real humans, and then you have a Winglore Spirits for the crowd.
I'm going to defer to the robots on their preference and the order of the lineup there.
Be nice to the robots. They're going to be in charge one day.
Yeah, there will be other opportunities though, because we are going on the road, right? So we're looking at a number of places to be, both with whiskey and music over the next couple of years. We can't be there, can't show up at everything, but we know a few.
Yeah, there's a couple big ones. I don't want to get ahead of the organizations that are going to announce these things, but think like big air show type things.
Oh, nice.
You can expect us there. And that, we think, is a really good example of this connection to aviation that people really do have, that maybe don't come from inside the flying community or actually at the flight controls, but they're inspired by it. So many people go to air shows, and all of us to some degree went to an air show as a kid, looked up and said, that's pretty cool. Or they watched like some iconic movie from the 80s about flying fighters that inspired us. Yeah, of course I'm talking about Iron Eagle. And
Doug Masters, come on now.
That's right, Chappie. And he was
We're a little
poor Chappie. So So, there's this whole thing about aviation that ties a lot of folks together, from going to airports to going to air shows to maybe getting into the aircraft and flying, a 9G aircraft. All of that, it can be connected. And we think what we're doing is helping to do that.
Well said. Well said. It's a good way to end the show. Easy, Trip, Snooze, thanks for your time. I really enjoyed the conversation. Easy, love what you're doing, and keeping these guys in check. It sounds like you're the sane one in the group. So you're like the anchor.
You don't know this guy.
Yeah. Maybe not. And then Carlos, I know you're just off screen, but thanks for doing what you're doing.
You want to hop in and say hello real quick?
Yeah, we jump in.
Come on
jump in and say hi.
Here, take my
Our CEO.
Hold that. Oh, okay.
Hey, Carlos, tell me about yourself.
Former enlisted, right? As well?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So we kind of share that one piece. I was enlisted infantryman. I was inspired by the other movie, Top Gun. So the other one.
There's another one?
I'm not familiar. What's that one?
What's that one about?
What's that about?
Going to El Toro air shows, and so wanted to be in the sky, and then eventually converted to be a Hornet pilot. So, but, met these guys. I knew I needed to tie in the piece. I was inspired by Dos Gringos as a young wingman, and although non-traditional, older young wingman. And I knew that was part of the thread to be able to pull everybody in under one cause, especially the services, right? Navy, Marine Corps. I'm the only, while you say you're the diversity hire as a card guy, I think I'm the other diversity hire as the half Hispanic F-18 guy. So
You're Hispanic?
Carlos? Half Gringo.
All right. Well, that's the show. Thanks. We'll see ya.
Oh, I wish I had a gun just like the A-10. I'd be happy